Section 2.6 is dimensional analysis. You've done a little bit of this in previous math classes. We're just making the problems a little bit more challenging now. Remember that you're going to have Appendix F on the test, so we're not asking you to memorize all these conversions. There are certain conversions that you should know. You should know that there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 365 days in a year. There's certain ones like that that we think everybody should know, but they're pretty common ones that I think you probably do know. So don't worry about the conversions. You'll be given the chart with the test. Worry about learning how to use the conversions. So the first problem we're going to do says use dimensional analysis to make the following conversion: 50 GPM, and then it explains that GPM means gallons per minute, to CFS, and it explains that that means cubic feet per second. So these are going to be really helpful to us because in dimensional analysis we like to write things out like fractions. So this is 50 gallons per minute. And what we know is all the way over here we want to wind up with cubic feet per second. So that tells us that we in some way need to go from gallons to cubic feet, and we need to go from minutes to seconds. You know how to go from minutes to seconds, so let's focus on gallons to cubic feet for the moment. So I'm going to go back to my appendix and I'm going to look around. So gallons to cubic feet, here it is right here, 7.48 gallons equals 1 cubic foot. So I'm going to make that into a fraction. Did I get that number correct? Yes. 7.48 gallons. Remember, I put that on the bottom so that it would cancel the gallons on top, and so that made it into 1 cubic foot. So now that cancels gallons and leaves me with cubic feet per minute. So now I want to get rid of the minutes and make them into seconds. So I'm going to erase this part now. So we go from minutes per second. We know that there's 60 seconds in 1 minute. The minutes are on the bottom over here, so I want them on the top over here, so they'll cancel. So this minute cancels this minute, and now I have cubic feet per second. So now I have to multiply across the top and bottom. So I have 50 times 1 times 1 on the top, cubic feet, and 7.48 times 60 on the bottom, and that's seconds. So now I need to do the calculation. So 50 times 1 times 1 is 50. 7.48 times 60, I'm going to do on my calculator. That's 448.8. And remember, our units are always important here, so this is cubic feet per second. And then I'm going to do that last calculation of 50 divided by 448.8 on my calculator. The answer came out as a decimal, and normally we'll tell you what we want you to round the decimal to, whether it's tenths or hundredths or thousandths. So in this case, I'm just going to round the decimal that I came up with to hundredths. So it came out as 0.11, and then remember, the units are really important here, so it's cubic feet per second. Next one says use dimensional analysis to make the following conversion. I'm doing this one because people really have a hard time with these ones that are things like cubic yards and cubic feet. So remember, if you have volume or area measurements, you got to be careful about how to do these. So watch what I'm going to do. So I could go back to my chart and it'll show me that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So I start out with 6 cubic yards, make it into a fraction. But remember, my unit conversion here doesn't tell me how many cubic feet are in a cubic yard. If it did, I could just use that conversion and just do one step. But because the only conversion I have is yards into feet, and this one is cubic yards, that means I have to use the conversion 3 times. So I'm going to do feet on top, yards on the bottom. But I'm not just going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm using the same conversion, 3 feet equal 1 yard, but using it 3 times, because in order to cancel cubic yards, I need 3 different versions of that, 3 separate versions of that calculation. So now that becomes, on the top I have 3 times 3 times 3, and then I have feet times feet times feet. Over on the bottom I have 1 times 1 times 1. I'm going to do that a little differently here because I left out my original number, which is really important. So I have my 6 cubic yards. And then I've got, now this is the thing I was doing before, so I have 3 times 3 times 3 times feet times feet times feet over 1 times 1 times 1 yards times yards times yards. So the reason I'm spelling it out this way is to remind you that that's the reason we repeat this 3 times, is because in order to cancel a cubic yard, I need yards in there 3 times. So now I have 6 times 3 times 3 times 3, and what's left is feet times feet times feet. Well, that's cubic feet. And on the bottom, I've canceled all my units, and all I've got is a bunch of 1s. So that's 1 on the bottom. So on the top, I have 18 times 3 times 3, so 18 times 9 I'll do on my calculator. And that comes out as 162 cubic feet. So 6 cubic yards turned into 162 cubic feet.